Hey makers, it's Michelle, and I'm here in my kitchen at home, and today I'm going to teach you how to make chocolate eclairs. This is a 2-day process, so we're going to get started on our day 1. We're going to grab our ingredients, including 6 large eggs, which we will be separating, 2 cups of whole milk, 1/4 a cup of cornstarch, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, 1 whole stick of butter, 1/4 a teaspoon of vanilla extract, or you can use a scraped vanilla pod for extra yumminess. And then finally, for my secret ingredient, 1/8 a teaspoon of lavender paste. This is potent stuff, so be very careful with it. Once you have all the ingredients, it's time to head over to the stove and get started. You'll want to make sure that you grab a medium-sized saucepan, and then in that saucepan we're going to combine our 2 cups of milk and our 1 stick of butter, which I've chopped up into smaller pieces for it to be easier to melt. Once all the ingredients are combined, you're going to turn on your heat to medium-high and stir constantly. This process will take a little while, but you want to make sure that your butter melts completely until your mixture comes to a rolling boil. When the milk starts to boil, you're going to want to remove the entire mixture from heat. Now that the heat's off, we're going to add our extracts. First will be the vanilla extract, which we'll add 1/4 a teaspoon of. You can also put in a scraped vanilla pod if you prefer that method. Next, we'll add my secret ingredient, which is a lavender paste. Like I said before, this stuff is very potent, so only a little bit is needed for this. Once we've added all our extracts, we'll set the mixture aside for 15 minutes and work on our eggs. While the milk is cooling off, we're going to separate our 6 eggs. In the big container, we're going to keep our yolks, and in the smaller one, we're going to keep our egg whites, which I'll be using for breakfast the next morning. Now that all our eggs are separated, we're going to add the granulated sugar. Once you've added it, you're going to now whisk it together very well for a few minutes until it starts to appear a light yellow in color. Once it starts to look light yellow in appearance, carefully add the cornstarch. This does fly all over the place, so whisk slowly and carefully. Continue Continue to whisk until all the cornstarch is mixed in and the eggs start to thicken. Now we're going to temper our egg mixture. What that means is we are gradually going to raise the temperature of the mixture so as to not scramble the eggs. Grab a small measuring cup and take a small scoop of the hot milk and gradually start adding it to the eggs while whisking constantly. You'll want to do this for a few scoops just to make sure that you are not cooking your eggs too quickly. Once you believe everything is warm enough, you can add the rest of your milk gradually into your mixture while whisking. Once the milk is mixed in, you're going to want to go ahead and pour everything back into your saucepan, as we're going to take it back over to the stove and heat it up. Scrape all the stuff in the bowl to make sure that you have everything. Once your saucepan is back on the stove, turn your temperature up to medium-low and whisk your egg mixture constantly until you feel it start to thicken. When the mixture starts to have the consistency of pudding, switch over to a spatula to mix it some more. When the consistency is like a custard, remove it from heat. After the mixture has cooled down, pour it into a clean mixing bowl. Be sure to use the spatula to smooth it down and make sure there are no air pockets. To prevent a layer of film developing on top of the filling, use some plastic wrap pressed closely onto the top to ensure that no air gets trapped on the inside. Then you're going to stick your filling into the fridge overnight to set up and firm. Let's head on over to day 2 when we make our choux pastry and gather all our ingredients together. First, we'll need a cup of flour, or 1 cup of gluten-free flour, 1 cup of water, or 1 1/4 cup used with gluten-free flour, 1 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 stick of unsalted butter, 4 large eggs, and 1 piping bag with a large star tip. If you don't have a piping bag, you can use a Ziploc Baggie, which works just fine. Now it's time to head to the stove with all of our ingredients. In the same medium-sized pan, we're going to add our butter, which I've cut up into smaller pieces. I'm going to add the water, our sugar, and then finally our salt. Once all the ingredients are added together, we're going to turn our heat onto medium-high. While stirring, make sure the butter melts completely until the entire mixture comes to a rolling boil. Next, reduce the heat to low and gradually add the flour. Mix it really well until you form a large ball. Once you form the ball, slowly add small increments of egg to your mixture. Stir constantly before you add the next increment of egg. You don't want to put too much in at a time. Continue to mix until you start to form a paste-like substance. Once you get the consistency of paste, it's time to add the mixture to our piping bag. To make it easier, place your piping bag in a large glass to hold it upright as you carefully add the mixture into the bag. Carefully pipe out your choux mixture onto a parchment-lined baking sheet, leaving enough room between each item. Once you finish piping, you're going to use an egg wash to give a shiny exterior to your choux pastry. This egg wash can also help press down your points that you left from your piping. Preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and when ready, put in your choux pastry to bake. You'll want to bake at 425 degrees for 15 minutes while you go ahead and clean up your dishes. When those 15 minutes are up, reduce your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and bake for an additional 25 minutes. Remove the choux pastry from the oven and cool for 45 minutes. Once cooled to room temperature, take your filling injector and pre-puncture holes to the bottom of the choux pastry. To make my filling slightly fluffy, I added a half a cup of whipped cream topping. You can use a pastry injector or piping bag to inject the filling into each of your choux pastry. Once filled, pop it in the fridge to chill as you make your ganache. This ganache recipe has only 2 ingredients. The first is 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips, which we are using Ghirardelli chocolate for. The second is a half cup of heavy cream that is boiling. We're going to combine the chocolate chips with the boiling cream in the dish and mix it all together. To save time, heat your cream in the microwave for about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Once boiling, combine the chocolate chips and the cream in your dish and mix well until all the chocolate is incorporated. For the final step, I'm going to be wearing gloves as I dip my eclairs into the chocolate ganache. You'll notice as I pull them out, I tip them side to side so the excess chocolate can drip off. I also use my gloves to help fill in the areas that might have been smudged by my fingers when I set the eclairs down on the tray. Once each eclair is done being dipped into the ganache, you're going to want to set them inside your fridge until they're ready to be served. Thank you for joining us on Makercraft Live. We'll see you later.